juggling your time with the staff, the children. In the midst of all of that, a major incident could happen and you're thrown.
So it's making sure that actually we're creating environments for children to thrive. What you would do for your own loved one, and that's what you would want to happen inside your home. Oh, I've got some time on Wednesday, I heard you're going to the cinema, like why don't we go together, or why don't we go here? And children really value that.
I want the children who come through Norwood to be able to say, my time in care may not have been great, but whilst I was at Norwood, I had a good time.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Zinnia. I am the registered manager for Norwood House, which is one of our children's home within South London.
Hi there, my name's Aimee and I'm the responsible individual for Norwood House.
As a newly registered manager, Aimee, what would you say or what advice would you give, being this my first registration as well?
I think as a registered manager, you are responsible for looking after a lot of people. And I think most importantly, it's about as well, looking after yourself. Make sure you're looking after, all the children, all the adults that we are having our teams. But I think to remember what we're doing. So it's making sure that actually we're creating environments for children to thrive. What you would do for your own loved one, and that's what you would want to happen inside your home.
Yeah.
And as well, I think it's just keeping up that key communication. I think that is literally key to everything in your role in terms of when you're speaking to social workers, sharing things with independent advocates, MDT teams in the home, but most importantly, have fun. I think, you can have a lot of fun. Yeah. It's trying to balance your time well between spending time with your team, coaching your team, spending time with the children, having fun with them.
A day-to-day at Norwood House, obviously walking through the door, you kind of get stopped, staff want a bit of your time, the children want a bit of your time. Obviously then you've also got to kind of do your daily walk around, making sure everything's okay. And it can get you can lose track of time just filling yourself in that role. And sometimes you do have to kind of put that protected time away to then go and sit down and kind of shut off and say, right now I've got to focus on this, which I think for me initially was a bit of a struggle. And I've had to kind of make sure that I've got an hour or two in the morning to go through all the records and all the documentation, make sure that's done. And then again, find time to go back on the floor because, you have to engage with the staff and the children every day. And then again, go back and have that time. And within that, you're juggling meetings, you're, juggling your time with the staff, the children, whatever. And in the midst of all of that, a major incident could happen and you're thrown kind of. So any advice in terms of managing that?
I would say again, so one thing that I've learned that works quite well, particularly with children with autism and learning disabilities, is giving them that time. So maybe when you're going in the mornings, and the same with the adults on shift. So a lot of what I used to do when I was an RM, I would go in, I would greet everyone, say hello, and I would let them know about my day to an extent, in a very kind of child-friendly way. So I would, might have a child, I might say to them, I really want to spend that time with you today, like why don't we catch up? How does 3 o'clock work for you? And I think with our children, it really works quite well when they know what they're doing and they know the times. What it is upholding that and just sticking to that promise. So it's never kind of making promises that you can't keep. So if you know that you've got 3 o'clock free and you're absolutely free, it's making sure that you can spend that time together. And I think for the adults as well is sometimes just checking in the mornings, when you first come in, check in with the pod leader in the morning. What's the plans for today? How's it all going? How's the attitude of the shift? How's the morale of the team? Do you need anything from me? I found that helps a lot. Sometimes if I'm having to kind of rush in and I've got a meeting at 9 o'clock, for example, and I've got to kind of rush in, that can be quite overwhelming. So it's allowing myself that time and balancing my time well so I can say, what do you need from me? Is there anything that I can help you with? So I try to give them that time in the mornings, and then they can have my undivided time when we're both free. So when the child is free and then when I'm free. And I think as well, looking at activities, one thing that's, really important, I think, especially as a manager, is having that close relationship with children. So being able to say, I've got some time on Wednesday, I heard you're going to the cinema, like why don't we go together, or why don't we go here? And children really value that, and especially it's those promises again, isn't it? And it's making sure that we're sticking with them. So I think the role of a registered manager can be quite underestimated in terms of the tasks that you have. It really is like an all-rounder kind of role, I would say.
Yes, because I think within that, obviously you have your Reg 44 coming in every single month, and you're getting ready for that. You're looking at the recommendations, making sure that you've completed them or implementing anything that's required. You are, you're constantly ensuring that you're meeting the regulations. Every single day you have to make sure your documentation, your records, your reports, that
sometimes
you're following
having that skiff
out
in front
the
of
skiff
you so
or
that you've got
the
it.
children's home regulations. You're communicating with social workers, you're sending countless emails. So I think it does take up quite a big chunk, and sometimes you can leave it a day thinking, what did I do today? But then when you think about all the things you did do,
and the children are happy,
the
children are safe,
exactly,
the adults are happy, and that's what's
exactly.
important,
You can feel like it can be a lot. Your to-do list is never done.
And I think alongside that, it's looking at how we keep the home running, generally speaking. As a person that comes in, is responsible for things like health and safety, making sure, are the bedrooms safe? Are the bedrooms well decorated for the children? Is there anything else that they need?
Is it personalised? Is it person-centred? Reflecting that, and just overall just making sure that your home's inviting, it's welcoming for anybody that walks through that door.
Yeah, absolutely. So a big part of our role is making sure that we are evidencing the progress and achievements that children make, and how we do that a lot of the time is through documentations which we share with social workers, we share with families. Sometimes that has to be shared within external services. Things like CAMs, at times they have to have documents, and school. But it's just making sure that we capture actually everything that we do for the children, but also making sure that we're capturing all the fantastic times that they're having, all the fun that they're having, the activities that they're having.
We have children who don't necessarily or are unable to manage kind of some of how we capture that evidence. Then they don't like taking pictures, or they don't want to engage in reviews or anything like that. So it's finding that preferred way to support them. It's adapting what we do to suit their needs.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
And I think as well, children are able and should have access to their files, which they can. So I think when we are, talking about the child, normally we speak to them because this is their documentation. So it's looking at, they could read this when they grow up and get older.
I think a key part of that as well, in terms of reading their documentation, is making sure that it's empathetic and it's therapeutic, because reading about yourself years later, you don't just want to hear, oh, you did this or you did that. You want to hear the positives and the progress.
You change and evolve, don't you?
Exactly. Exactly. And I think it's always nice for them to read back and see the good stuff. And I think the biggest thing for me is I want the children who come through Norwood to be able to say, my time in care may not have been great, but whilst I was at Norwood, I had a good time. I was cared for, I was looked after well, I was loved. And I think that is, as we know through trauma, a lot of things imprints on them, and it's not enough of the positives. And I think looking back,
and knowing actually, look, I was cared for, I had a great time. And sometimes, we forget things. We're humans, like we forget things a lot. I can't remember what I was doing a few years ago. But it's nice to remind them actually of the positive experiences that they have had, and actually sometimes, where they were and when they've made that progression, which is absolutely fantastic. Okay, Zinnia. So now that you're a registered manager, what would you look for as a registered manager?
Somebody that's very resilient. Somebody that's very passionate about what they do, passionate about wanting to support the children to make positive progress. I think they need to be confident. They need to be a people person. They need to be able to be quite sociable and, be able to support their team in a good way, but also knowing the boundaries and know, okay, when it's required, you may need to say, constructive criticism or practical thinking when you're talking to the team, upskilling them. Sometimes you have to say to them, okay, this is what you need to do, this is not what you're doing, right? But I think as a manager, you have to be able to do that. It's not just being friends with your team. You have to know the boundaries. So I would definitely look for somebody who was very boundaried in their relationship with the team, as well as with the young person. Obviously, we do want to show professional love, but you have to be boundaried. But I think the biggest thing for me is being passionate, and wanting to make sure that the home you're managing is doing well, because ultimately that's what the children are going to remember. Yeah,
absolutely. So kind of within that, we've looked at registered manager. What, the leadership team at Norwood are involved in recruitment. So when you're looking to hire, team leader roles who look after our pods and senior coaches and coaches, what would you say is kind of key within that? What do you typically look for to join your team at Norwood?
I look for how they present during interviews. I look for how enthusiastic they are, how much they talk about, especially when we talk about personal development or developing within your role. I look for the answers within that, because if you're able to answer that and answer that confidently, I feel like you know kind of where you want to go within the organisation. You'll know if you want to be the next team leader, or if you want to be the next deputy, or the next registered manager or RI. So it's good to find out, okay, where do you see yourself within 5 years? What do you see yourself doing? Ultimately, what you want from your role. Do you know what I mean? Because you can get a lot of people that come in and they're quite happy to just sit in one place. And it's about, why are you applying for this job? What do you want? What do you want to get out of it? So yeah, I would definitely want to know more about their interests, what they're looking for, where they want to go.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes that sort of kind of does differentiate Supercare from other organisations, actually, because I think we are trying to invest in the team, because actually I think when we do invest in the team, we get fantastic results from the children, and actually, we have to look after our adults to make sure that our children are well looked after. So it is, setting that bar high in terms of what childhood we can give children.
Yeah, I agree. I think, looking at myself personally, I feel like for me, Supercare was where I fit. I was in a different organisation for many years, and I was okay there. And then when I left, it took me a while to find where I did fit again. And I feel like within Supercare, I've now got that back. I think, do you know what I mean? So for me, I think it's definitely worked in terms of joining the organisation. And I identify with the support and the passion and what's offered to children. So it's
absolutely
great.
Yeah.